Finding Common Battlegrounds is an attempt by two brothers, one conservative, the other progressive, to have civil conversations about politics with a little help from their friends.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Finding Common Battlegrounds. This is our podcast where we talk about political things and current events, but we try to get representation for both the left and the right. So I have Josh and Ryan Cragen. They're brothers, but they are polar opposites. Josh is a conservative libertarian, and Ryan is a liberal, left liberal. And
Ryan has hair on his head. Josh has hair on his face.
Josh, yeah, they're both wearing green shirts.
Just
representing
opposites.
the Earth today, the planet.
Go green.
They both care about the Earth. But we're today's rapid fire. So I have a number of questions. I'm going to be just firing. I'm going to be peppering at these two just to see what their view is. Right? We get a little kind of rounded out view of the spectrum, right, of like where people they're sitting, because I think these two represent sort of like the average view of their groups. So a little mention of Lux bidets. That's our bidets. We're all big bidet fans. We like to wash up when we do our doo-doo, and
every time you do this, Tom, my wife just cringes. She's like, "Is he going to talk about poop again?" She just like hates it. She hates that you do that. Now, granted, we only have bidets on our toilets, right? So like every toilet in the house has a bidet, but for some reason, she likes
she likes the bidet. She likes the experience. She just doesn't like me talking about it.
Yeah, she doesn't want to talk about poop. She's like, "Stop talking about poop. That's gross."
This is a sophisticated podcast.
Okay, let's fix that, because we shouldn't talk about poop. That is lowbrow. But what bidets are really great for is for women, their time of the month. Let's talk about that, Debbie. Huh?
Oh, yeah, she's gonna like that. But it's true.
It is very true. My wife doesn't use the bidet except for that time of the month, and then she loves it because it's gentle cleansing. So there we go. That's not lowbrow.
Yeah. All right. So
I'll
I'm
tell
just
you
gonna
how
jump
she
in.
responds to that one. Okay.
She'll never talk to me again, probably.
I'm going to jump in on to start with our so this is a question that Ryan brought up that we're going to talk about, but should all LDS clergy be mandatory reporters? What that means is if someone is confessing to an LDS as a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, so if they're talking with one of their clergy, which is usually referred to as bishop, so if someone's confessing to a bishop, should that bishop confess should that bishop report if the person has confessed a crime? What do you guys think about that? Ryan, you clearly have opinions on it, so why don't you?
Well, sure. Just to give a little bit of the context of why this came up. So the Associated Press just had a big story about an issue of a bunch of young girls who were basically raped by their dad for years in Arizona. And eventually he was caught because he was filming it and putting it online. And it was the police in New Zealand who actually tracked him down. I mean, it's bizarre that it took that long, but he had admitted to it. Yeah, he admitted to it to his bishop. And the bishop let it go for 7 years. There was actually a transition to a new bishop. The new bishop found out about it, didn't report it to the authorities. So they had known, and they got on the call line. There's a hotline that bishops can call. They called the hotline, and the hotline was like, "You're not a mandatory reporter. You don't have to report it." And they took that as don't report it. So they didn't report it. So the abuse and rape continued for years. And it wasn't just one daughter, it was multiple daughters that he was raping. And then eventually, when he was caught, he almost immediately committed suicide in prison. And then the whole story broke, right? So, then the girls were taken away from the mother because the mother knew about it, which makes this even more complicated. She knew about it the whole time. They take the girls away. And now some of the girls are suing the church and the bishops for not actually stepping in to protect them. So that's the situation. That's what led to it. Big story, right? Complicated. We can try and go into some of the details, but I think the easiest question here is, should clergy be exempted from having to report? So as a faculty member at my university, we're a private university, so I don't work for the state, I don't work for the government. At my university, I am considered a mandatory reporter. So if a student comes into my office, regardless of why they came into my office, if they came in for advising, they came in for office hours, whatever, and they let slip that they have ever been subjected to any form of abuse, I am required legally to report that to our Title IX officer. So I'm a mandatory reporter, and as soon as they say something, I would have to tell them, hey, before you tell me anything else, you have to understand, I am a mandatory reporter. I have to tell. Legally, I'm required to.
Is it
right
just
now,
abuse, or is it any crime? What are the parameters for you?
It's abuse. It's abuse. So any form of sexual assault, sexual abuse, anything.
If they're the victim.
Even I mean, if it was an abuser, I would probably still have to report that, right? So if somebody said that,
say anything, okay.
Yeah, I mean, that might get complicated if like it was somebody who had served time for this and then came in and then told me. I don't think I would have to because they've already served time for it. But if somebody came in and was like, last night I sexually assaulted somebody, I'd be like, what you just told me, I have to report, right? Like that is going to happen. So, and there will be an investigation. It's always going to happen.
So you think they should be?
I think all clergy should be. Absolutely. There's no question in my mind. Yeah, in my mind, there's no reason for clergy to have an exemption such that, some guy comes in and says, hey, I've been sexually assaulting this 3-year-old. And a clergy person's like, well, this is clergy penitent privilege. I'm not going to tell anybody, and I'm just going to let this 3-year-old continue to be abused. In my mind, that's just mind-boggling. Like, absolutely
not. Josh, what do you think?
Absolutely. If it's phrased that way, because Ryan initially phrased it, any crime, if it's a victimless crime, like if he comes in and says, hey, I've been smoking some marijuana, like, no,
I don't care.
That's silly. But if there's a victim in the crime, abso-friggin-lutely. That's absurd to think otherwise. Why would you not want to do everything you can to protect children? The only counter argument I can see is maybe that would make it less likely for people to confess to a priest or clergyman or whatever, or a bishop, or whoever it be, if they know that it's mandatory reporting, which is problematic. So you could actually make that argument. But
what argument?
That people would no longer confess.
That they'd just be like, oh, don't tell anybody this.
Yeah, and then the bishop can't step in at all and help at all if he doesn't know about it, right? That actually is a valid argument, because if somebody tells the bishop, I'm feeling bad about this, I shouldn't be doing this, then the bishop can try to help. But I mean, you see the point I'm making. But I actually agree with Ryan.
Well, I would think that bishops would start saying exactly what Ryan was saying. They're like, hey, I am a mandatory reporter, right? What you tell me, I'm going to report. And so they'd be like, zip.
It might be, exactly. It's going to shut people up instead of bringing the crap out into the light where it needs to be to fix it. So a better alternative, maybe if we're talking specifically about the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, might be that the guideline for the bishop is, if there's any kind of abuse, you need to report it, rather than making it like an actual law or statute. You know what I'm saying? So then it is the bishop's fault if he's not following the guidelines. I don't know. A little complicated.
Listen to this.
I don't want that to fall on the bishop. That seems awful to me. I mean, because at the end of the day, the bishop is following the policies that come down from church headquarters.
Well, agreed. But how do you bypass this tricky ground of getting people to confess when they're doing something horrible? Because I agree with you. I don't. Right. I mean, the bishop is literally my neighbor. It's not like he wanted this job. He's just some guy that had the unfortunate. Yeah. He got picked. He doesn't want it. So you're right. I agree.
And I love hearing about my neighbor abusing his children.
I would never
Well, any bishop that you talk to, that like they're scarred after this because they know all the dirt on 300 people that live around them. They don't want this.
Listen,
I
listen
get
to
that.
this. This is because I looked into this because I thought this was interesting and I wanted to know what are the rules. So this is for a therapist, right? So there's a number of groups. There's like cops, therapists, and clergy, that these kind of groups into where there's this sort of privilege. So there's just one paragraph. I'm just going to read this. They said, some people wonder if therapists have to report crimes, and the answer is a bit complex. They are legally required to tell the police or the potential victim if they believe a patient may hurt someone else. A psychiatrist is not required to report past crimes in most cases, though. So, for example, if a patient tells a psychiatrist that he raped an adult woman, therapist confidentially requires her to help work with him to overcome any feelings he may have that might make him commit the same crime in the future, and work to help him get past any guilt he may have about the crime. But if he told his therapist that he can't stop thinking about raping the teenage girl next door, she is legally required to report the crime to the girl's parents or the police, which I thought was very interesting. Now, there's this one sentence here. It says, while therapists do not need to report crimes that they have already happened, in most cases, there are exceptions when it comes to the therapist's confidentiality in crimes involving crimes against children, the disabled, and the elderly. So basically vulnerable people. If a past crime is committed, they do have to report it. So I actually looked that up against clergy. And so this is priests, right? This is like Catholic Church. And it's really interesting because this is the Catholic Church. And basically the Catholic Church has fought like a lot of these against having to report things. And where is it? The First Amendment's protections for religious freedom does allow churches to handle confession however they see fit, whether that means keeping them entirely secret from everyone else, like the Catholic Church, or telling all the other members of the church. Even for Catholics, evidence of child abuse acquired when the communication is not confidentially made under the seal of confession makes the priest subject to mandatory reporting. Now, if they did say it under
confession,
under right. Then it gets where it's not, where it is confidential, then it's a little more complicated. But it sounds
that's
like
also governed by state law too.
Yeah.
So some states have actually passed laws that say it doesn't matter if it's a confession to a clergy person. If it's child sex abuse, you have to report it.
Yeah. So I'm confused is I'm assuming the bishoprics, because so if this guy was saying I've done this, he would have to. Well, that's where it's confusing, right? If he was saying I'm going to do it in the future, then the bishop would have to report it, and especially if he called the hotline. Because that is very clear here in a number of places.
So the AP story, and again, I'm sure
it's more
the
complicated.
Church is going to dispute this, right? But the AP story basically says that the bishop called the hotline. The hotline supposedly goes to social workers, but most of the evidence seems to suggest that it goes to attorneys. And they told him in the state of Arizona, you are not required to report this. Mm-hmm. And both bishops took that as, I'm not going to report this. And it turns out in Arizona, you actually are required to report this, which is why those girls who were sexually abused, they're suing the bishops and the church. They're
right.
suing both.
They're right? And if they did give bad legal advice, then yes, they should be. If they did it wrong,
they're liable.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's why I would say I don't want this to be something that is up to a bishop
interpretation
to make the decision. Because if you put this in the hands of the bishop, then the bishop becomes legally responsible for making that decision. And that's a terrible position. I mean, as Josh said, these are lay individuals with no professional training. They're not trained in therapy. They're not trained in abuse. They're not trained in any of these things. They basically are given a handbook and it's like, good luck, right? Try and figure this out.
Hope you don't get sued.
Terrible position. It's a terrible position to be in. There should be a clear process that's like, if X happens, you do Y, and it should be all in the interest of protecting the vulnerable. It should always privilege that.
This is the same argument I make against why I said I never want to be a cop. Because I'm like, if a cop has a bad day, like they can go to
You're
prison,
done.
right?
Your life's over.
Well, not only can you lose your job, you can go to prison, right? If you like lose your temper and do something rash. It's like, I had a bad day at work once and we lost $35,000. And that was like my worst day at work when I was employed. And I'm like, yeah. If it was really bad, they would have fired me, right? Like a big deal. Yeah. Like that's pretty much the worst thing that can happen. I'm like, but it's like this with like being a layman, right? Of like a clergy. You're like, all right, thanks for helping. Oh, and you're going to jail. It sucks.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think we're in agreement, right?
I agree 100% with what Ryan said. It's complicated. It's more complicated than we cared to think about, because this is messy.
Yeah.
Because I'm concerned about the guy doing it too, not nearly as much as I'm concerned about the children, but I'd like to help him because that's messed up.
Yeah, you're hoping he confesses.
Yeah,
and the bishop
get it to the light
to and gets them to not do it anymore, right? And they get over it.
But still, the children take priority by far. Don't misread me there. So it's complicated and it's messy, and we want people to be able to feel like they can trust the clergymen, the bishops, so that they can confess these sins, so they can get help. Because otherwise, it just stays in the dark. But yeah,
that's the thing. It's like, if it stays in the dark, like, where is it better or worse for this guy to never tell anybody? Does it keep going?
Way worse.
Probably. Right.
Just in this situation, he came to the bishop and he brought it into the light, and then the bishop, whoever's fault it was, they didn't do the right thing and protect the kids. That would have been the best situation. Right.
Okay. But let me complicate this. I would actually say it's worse for them to confess to a bishop who then does nothing.
Yes, that's worse. That's worse.
You see what I'm saying? So that's even worse than him not confessing. I'm
sure they talked about it, and he tried to counsel him, right? Try to get him to.
Yeah, but what kind of expertise does a bishop have in trying to actually get somebody to stop a behavior like that? Right. We just said bishops have no training in this. So they get in that case, the bishop was actually a physician. But, there are bishops who are mechanics. There are bishops who sell insurance, right? They have zero training in trying to help somebody who is a pedophile. I mean, that's what the guy was, right? He was a pedophile.
No doubt about it.
So that is a very complex psychological issue. Whether it can even be trained to get rid of that is... that's debated, right? So to say, maybe it'd be better that he confess, but then the bishop doesn't do anything. I think that's actually worse, to be honest, right? So if you confess, and I get what you're saying, like, we want the crime to come out,
right?
But if he confesses and then nothing happens, how's that better, right? I think that's actually.
No, I'm not saying it is.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Interesting.
Yeah, it's messy. People suck.
Yeah, that's an unfortunate situation with the girls.
So sad.
All right, I'm gonna move on to the next question. Something a little lighter, maybe. Okay,
let's hope so.
Okay, I'll move to this one. Liz Cheney. So Liz Cheney, senator, right? Or no, House representative for Wyoming, just lost her primary bid, so she is out of the running.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yep.
Yeah, she
happened yesterday.
She got beat by can't remember the name. It's an alliteration, but it's basically a Trump supporter or Trump-backed candidate beat her out in the primary, and it's sort of this. Trump supporters are like, this is vindication for her being on the January 6th committee and supporting it and having the hearings, these publicized hearings, to embarrass and hurt Trump's reputation. So a lot of people are saying, like, well, maybe she's going to run for president, and this is like and that's the question, right? Should Liz Cheney run for president? And on the Republican ticket, which you have a chance, is this a good idea?
No.
That's what people are. That's what people are encouraging her to do.
Hadn't heard that.
Yeah.
She has
I
no
did hear
chance if
that.
she runs as a Republican. I think she has a better chance if she runs as a Democrat. Honestly, she's not going to beat out Trump. I mean, we just saw that she lost the primary, and I think they both lose to Ryan's favorite guy. So,
Well,
wow, that's
that's
interesting.
conservative Wyoming, right? She just clearly she wasn't popular enough to get reelected there because of what she did, but on a national level, right? Could she perform?
I don't think she's liked enough. She's not as liked as much as Trump.
Well, so two questions here, right? My first one would be, by you saying she shouldn't run, are you basically conceding? And I know you don't consider yourself a Republican, Josh, but are you basically conceding?
Republican.
Right? Are you conceding that the party now belongs to Trump?
Right.
No,
because that's basically what this is. That's a concession that Liz Cheney represents the non-Trump supporting conservative base. And
that's making it
she lost
far more.
Well, I don't think that's the question, right? Does she represent? There is a fight for the soul of the Republican Party that's still going on right now.
Yeah.
Who could represent?
I mean, is there a fight?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, there is. Tom and I aren't Trump guys, and we're not.
Well, I know that, and I'm not trying to put you into that camp. I'm not trying to say you are Trump guys, but it sounds like you're saying she could not compete. And if that's the case, is Trump the party?
I think he's
saying.
I think he's saying
she
couldn't. She's not strong enough, but somebody else could. If Mitt Romney ran, right, he could put a pretty good fight.
No, he's not even like in Utah anymore.
Yeah, but that's because he's not a Trump supporter,
right? He's hated by the Trump supporters.
Which means, are you guys conceding that this is basically the party of Trump?
I don't know,
because
I don't know.
What's his bucket in freaking Florida? I just drew
DeSantis.
Yeah, but
DeSantis is going to beat Trump, so it's not Trump's party.
He might, but I wouldn't even. He's sort of the other side of the same coin, right? He's just.
I mean, he got elected because he was backed by Trump. So the only reason people are putting DeSantis against Trump is because he might run against him in the primary. I don't think Trump's actually going to run. I do think like the January 6th committee has done enough damage to him that he's probably not going to run. But that basically means DeSantis has it, and DeSantis has always been a Trump acolyte. The Republican Party basically is the party of Trump right now. And I get
you can't call him
even if it's not Trump.
If he runs against Trump, can you really call him a Trump acolyte?
Sure.
He's different enough. I mean, I agree with Tom. It is kind of two sides of the same coin, but he's different enough from Trump that he appeals to me. Trump doesn't appeal to me. So I think you saying that Liz Cheney, this whole thing's a referendum on if it's the party of Trump, I think that's a gross oversimplification. She's just not popular enough. She's a bit player. Nobody knows who she is. I barely know anything about her. She can't beat Trump or DeSantis.
She's holding on principle, right? I mean, isn't that a good thing? And then my second question, which I didn't ask, is you don't care about principles? Okay, got it. My second question was, what if she runs as an
politics these days?
What if she runs as an independent?
That'll hurt the Republicans.
Yeah, it will. For sure.
It always does.
Well, it doesn't always, but because I mean, like Yang could run as an independent, and he would hurt the liberals.
Right?
Yang? What?
Andrew Yang.
Andrew.
Mm-hmm.
The Democrats are usually smart enough not to. We get like the Ross Perot's and stuff,
right? And to ruin ourselves.
Well, but right now, okay, so we know that she couldn't win the primary for the Republican Party. But there is, and this is why I would say, like, I get what you're saying, that it isn't entirely the party of Trump, but it seems like the vast majority of Republicans right now basically worship at the foot of Trump, right? But there's a tiny sliver who are still trying to hold out and say, we stand for conservative values and we don't worship this guy. Right.
I wouldn't say
would Liz Cheney,
but I would say Trump supporters are very loud and they're very active, and I would even say they might be in the minority, but they're extremely active and vocal. And this
is the same thing that we see from the left. We go, the left is just insane. They want all these crazy things. It's the vocal minority that's super loud and annoying.
Right.
That's really pushing the envelope. Same thing on the right. Most of the people I know, and Ryan never, I've said this before, most of the people I know aren't like, Trump's the best. I do know people that love him, but most of the people I know are like, can we tone it down a notch and get back to civility?
Turn down the crazy.
But they're not the ones that are all over Facebook and TikTok and Twitter trumpeting this.
It's just like I always say with presidential the primaries, where you have these, they're always like poll numbers, right? And this guy's got 50% of the vote, and you're like, those poll numbers, like, oh look, it's like this big group wants Bernie and this group wants Hillary. That sampling is from this Democratic base that's like super, super small and doesn't represent the populace as a whole, right? It's the same on the Republican side, right? When they're like, oh look,
it depends on who does the poll, but that's often the case.
But they always, right, when in this one, the primaries, these presidential primaries, right, and they're running up, and there's like, they got all these, and you get these super extreme candidates, right? And Yang is in there, and he's like, universal income for everybody, and it's popular, and you're like, but the group it's popular with, it's the super small, super extreme group on the side that's going to be voting in these primaries. Doesn't represent the populace, right? That's why you always go extreme in the primaries, and then when you get to the general, you're like, okay, go back to the center.
Well, I mean, part of the reason why that happens, Florida is a good example. If you're not signed up for a party in Florida, you don't get to vote in that party's primaries.
Yeah.
So what that ends up doing is just the primaries cater to the base, right? And
totally,
the more extreme members are the ones who are more likely to come out in primaries, which means you end up getting more extreme candidates. And then when it comes to the general election, you end up with the two extremes. You don't get the moderates, right? And that's the big driver of our polarization today is the primary system. The primary system is quite broken. The two-party system's broken. We've talked about all this, right?
Yeah.
So all of that breaks it and forces polarization. It's stupid.
That's what Liz needs to go and join with Yang and join the Forward Party, and they start a third party. That's actually legit, but probably won't happen.
Those two are losers. If Tulsi Gabbard does it, sign me up. But I'm not a big fan of those other two. Yang's okay. He's not terrible, but
I always see him as a socialist based on what he tried to run on. So, but even though I kind of like him. What is it? Okay, all right, okay. Don't run, Liz. Don't run. I'll pass it on.
I hope she runs as an independent. And she lost to Harriet Hageman. That's who it was. I looked it up real quick.
Alliteration.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Let's see. All right. This one's interesting. Like, I know what Josh's gonna say, but this one I think is interesting, and I want Ryan's take on this. So this is, what do you think about this quote from Zoe Kravitz? So this is Zoe Kravitz. So do you guys know who she is? She is
Lenny's daughter.
She's a movie star, right? She was in The Batman. I think she was Batgirl or something like that. And she's been in a few other movies. But when Will Smith slapped Chris Rock, she criticized him. And then she's received a lot of backlash, and so she's walked that back. But she said this in a Wall Street Journal article just recently. It says it's a scary time to have an opinion, or to say the wrong thing, or to make controversial art or statements or thoughts or anything. So that's a crazy statement, right? It's a scary time to have an opinion, or to say the wrong thing, or to make controversial art or statements or thoughts or anything. What do you think about that statement, Ryan? Is that political, or have we hit the point where political correctness has run amok?
Okay. Interesting, right? And I can see her point. If you're famous and you say something that somebody thinks is stupid, right, or problematic or offensive, you're going to get hammered for it. That doesn't mean you shouldn't say things, right? I mean, Josh and I have agreed in the past that the First Amendment is the First Amendment. You have the right to speak, even if that means sticking your foot in your mouth. Where I would just flip this a little bit is, I know a lot of the media attention kind of seems to suggest that the left is, they're like the PC police and they're going after people, but the right do this too. There's a lot of censorship that happens on the right. We've got the woke police on the left, and then we have censorship on the right, and they're both fighting these battles right now. So I don't think it's coming from one side or the other. I think her point is pretty legit. Like, it doesn't matter if you're on the right or the left. If you say something that a certain group of people doesn't like, they can go after you really quick. I mean, lynch mobs are, very common on Twitter, on all sorts of platforms. I don't think it matters which side you're coming from.
Thoughts, Josh?
Yeah, Ryan's wrong. You look at Jordan Peterson. He's a leftist. Okay, he's a Democrat, and
Jordan Peterson is not a leftist.
Go look at his politics, especially before it all hit the fan. He's come out and said, "I'm a Democrat."
He's probably
more liberal,
left of the road, left of the center, but he's
not a Republican. Okay,
that's fine. I'll concede that. But
Joe Rogan,
to say that he's like an AOC leftist is not accurate.
Did I say that?
He's left of center, but definitely a moderate. Definitely a moderate.
He's a liberal moderate. Okay. Joe Rogan, he's always voted Democrat.
Left of center.
But see how you're defending this so vociferously?
I'm not defending anything. Joe Rogan, you're like, he's a leftist, and I'm like,
what's your point?
Leftist means radical left.
What's your point? The left has tried to silence both of them and a whole slew of other people, and so Ryan's not completely wrong, but this cancel culture that does come from the left, because they want to they tried. We had a whole podcast about them canceling Joe Rogan. Now sure. He's supporting DeSantis, right? And his entire life he's been Democrat, voted Democrat. He's still very liberal when it comes to a lot of social policies. But now he's come out and said the left has gone insane. Bill Maher just did this. The left has gone insane because they're trying to cancel everybody.
So Joe Rogan is supporting DeSantis.
I believe I saw him say that a couple months or two ago, because the left has gotten so crazy about canceling people that have an opinion that they disagree with. It's this weird being intolerant of people because you don't think they're tolerant. Like it's a weird catch-22. So they try to cancel anybody that they don't agree with. And again, to what we just talked about, a lot of this is the vocal minority on the left, but they have a lot of power. And I was listening to a podcast.
Power on Twitter.
Yeah, and Twitter has an insane amount of power. But also in the media, the left owns the media, even though Ryan won't admit it. I was listening to this guy,
Rupert Murdoch.
Fox News hired Donna Brazile, who I mentioned earlier. They're not as right as you think they are. Anyway, I was listening to this podcast, and this guy used to be a leader of the Twitter mob. He was canceling people left and right, and he had hundreds of thousands of followers. And then some lady came out and said he made an advance on me, and I didn't like it, and he was too aggressive. He immediately got canceled. And so he was the guy with the pitchfork and the torch, right? And then they turned on him. And so he gave this really interesting breakdown of what it's like to be canceled, because he was a comedian. All of his shows got canceled. All of his livelihood dried up. Okay. He was canceled. He was done. He was bankrupt. I don't even remember the original. About it. Zoe Kravitz. Yeah, there's a reason that comedians have stopped going to college campuses. They can't be funny anymore. And comedians are the ones that are supposed to make light of the problems of society so we can address them, and so we don't get too depressed by them. They're the ones supposed to be pushing that envelope. They won't even do it anymore because they don't want to be canceled. They won't go to college campuses who are run by, sorry, Ryan, the left.
Well, okay. Since you bring up college campuses, can we talk about college campuses? Right now, the administration in my state, and I know I make everything about Florida, right? But this is happening here in Florida. I understand. The administration, the state administration, the DeSantis administration, is censoring faculty, prohibiting faculty from being able to talk about things that faculty want to talk about, despite our ability to control what we're supposed to be able to do in the classroom. They're censoring our books, they're censoring what we can teach, and they're censoring what we can say. That's all happening within a Republican administration. So I get what you're saying. Like, there is the, woke police who go after people, the cancel culture on Twitter. But in terms of real effects, our administration here in the state, not at my university because mine's a private university, but at public universities, they've now put into place that students don't have to ask permission to record lectures, and they are doing that so they can specifically record any professor who says anything that they don't like, and then they can report them. They're literally trying to create a hostile environment for faculty, so we can't have open discussions with our students. So when you say it's only the left who's doing this,
no, I actually agree with your
statement.
The right
is literally censoring books
does more censorship
and speech. They're doing it right now.
Ugh.
Okay. Literally right now in my state. So
what did they
there's
censor
no way
so
that you can say this is a one-side thing. This is a two-sided thing.
Or Josh, where I thought you were going to go with when you mentioned Jordan Peterson was he's pretty famous for the line he made in that interview. He said, in order to think, you risk offending somebody. But which I think is kind of is related. Yeah, addresses this quote, and I think that's an interesting time we live in, that she's scared to even have an opinion, basically. Well, it's too bad.
To add a piece to this. So at my university, we've been wrestling with this issue of what is okay to talk about on campus, and in our classrooms. And I do have a lot of autonomy when it comes to my classroom and the things that I talk about. Are there some areas where I would be a little bit wary today? Yes, but the University of Chicago actually issued 10 years ago now, something like that, a statement on freedom of speech that includes freedom in the classroom and freedom of expression on campus. And it's a very open one that's we want to have these challenging conversations. What Jordan Peterson said, perfectly in line with what the University of Chicago put out.
Right.
Our university adheres to it. I don't think we've formally adopted it, but we adhere generally to the principles laid out by the University of Chicago, which is we're going to have tough conversations in the classroom because that's the only way to move things forward and to get people to think. If you want people to think, you're going to have to challenge them.
Do you think that's really
sometimes
happening?
People get offended. In my classrooms, absolutely.
Because I've heard a lot of that. John Haidt, right? Jonathan Haidt, who you've mentioned. He has a whole thing. The what is it? The American mind. What is it? The coddling of the American mind.
Yes, which is a great book.
Yeah, but he's saying that's a problem, right? That professors can't say things.
I don't disagree with what Ryan just said, that the classroom is the proper place for challenging ideas. But all you have to, the proof is in the pudding, because Ryan's picking and choosing his examples here. Go look at Ben Shapiro and his college tour. He had to pay millions of dollars for security, and a lot of his college venues just refused. They said, no, not worth it. We don't want you here because the students are going to be mad. And all of these guys that are in the intellectual underground, they all had the same thing. College campuses either flat out refused them, said this is hate speech, whatever you're talking about, even though they couldn't give proper examples for most of these guys that there's actual hate speech. Stephen Crowder, same thing. You go down the list.
Well, I can't.
Basically anybody that works at the Daily Wire.
No, Richard Spencer, who is an open racist, right? He's a white supremacist.
I've never heard
the
of
University of Florida let him speak. Okay, because yes, but it's complicated, right? And this is where it gets complicated, because they're a public university. So they're a public university. They can't really deny him a place, but the security involved in protecting him was going to cost the university millions of dollars. So they are not legally required to provide the security for a white supremacist to come on campus to speak.
Again, you're picking and choosing.
So they bumped that and said, if you're willing to pay the security, then you can come speak on our campus. We'll let anybody come speak, but you have to pay the security. We're not going to foot the bill. And I think that's perfectly reasonable as a response to say, hey, not just anybody gets to come on campus. If somebody wants to come on campus and do something that's horrific and awful and is going to lead to a whole bunch of people getting upset, and that's going to cause a security issue, right? I don't care that people say things. Like, people can say whatever they want to say. We've agreed on this, right? First Amendment, that's fine. Like, you can do that. But why should the people of the state of Florida have to pay for the security for Richard Spencer?
You're not wrong, but again, you're picking these edge cases that don't prove that.
But that is specifically a case of a white supremacist being allowed to speak on a college campus.
Okay,
and you were saying that people who aren't even that bad were being turned down. Well, private
Ben
universities
Shapiro
don't have to.
A white supremacist?
No, I don't know Ben
supremacist.
Shapiro. I don't.
Was it private universities? You're not admitting.
Hey, Josh, was it private universities or was it public universities? Because we are under no obligation at my university to have people come speak. Literally, you can't even protest on my university's campus. You can't. It's a private university. We don't have to let anybody do anything. You can't proselytize on our campus. You can't do anything on our campus without permission from the administration. That is different.
So
at
far
public
off the
universities.
question.
All right.
Well, I'm asking. That's the question.
Well, no, it's not off. This is censorship, and right, the First Amendment, right, and in our culture, right, cancel culture and stuff like that. So I think it's relevant. But all right, I'm going to move on. we're
that's your prerogative as a moderator.
Yeah, this is interesting. I think it's interesting.
Let me throw one thing in there, because I bet Ryan, go watch one of Steven Crowder's Change My Mind videos. Have you ever seen any of those? He'll go to a college campus, come up with a controversial thing, put up a sign. He always gets permission, and he always has a ton of security, and he just sits there and says, we should have guns or something, change my mind. And he's daring students to come talk to him. And he's very civil. He's always civil. And almost every one of his videos, the students will line up and start chanting and screaming and try to run him off. It's fascinating. Go watch any one of his videos. He's got dozens of them. So that's my challenge to you. Anyway, continuing on.
Challenge has been put out to watch a Steven Crowder video. Okay. All right. So yeah, I got you 3 questions. I got more if you guys
yeah.
We're good.
One
Keep
more.
going.
Is my audio good? Because my internet is terrible.
Yeah. Your audio sounds good to me.
You look fantastic.
Okay. Your videos on my end just are completely frozen. And then they'll refresh about every 30 seconds. So as long as my audio is still good, let's keep going.
Your video and audio are great on my end, and mine's the bad internet tonight. So
okay. Should the US be trying to have more children? Should we be trying to have more children? So this is a population thing. I've read a lot.
Trying or succeeding? Because I'm all about the trying.
We can agree on that, Josh. I'm good with that. Yeah.
This has sort of been a lot in the news, right? Elon Musk has been bringing this up that we need to be having more children, where the kind of consensus had been that we had too many children, right? There was a big book that was wrote about population bomb. It's pretty popular, that we were like, we're gonna destroy the world. And but now people are saying, whoa, we don't have enough. And I guess I've read a bit about this where China is the fastest shrinking population right now, the fastest shrinking.
I don't think they are yet. Japan's already shrinking. Russia is shrinking. There are a number of countries that are shrinking.
Yeah, it's the
China
rate.
is going to
the
start
velocity
shrinking.
is what I'm saying.
Yes.
Yeah.
Their rate at which they're slowing their growth is probably the fastest. That's probably true. Yeah.
So it's So US is doing. We have immigration. Like, if you look at the charts, we're doing okay, but not fabulous. So should we be proliferating more? What do you think?
No.
Ryan? No.
Okay,
one kid Ryan. One child
Yes.
Ryan.
Versus 5 for Tom. Is that right? 5?
5 for me.
And 4 for Josh. All right. So here's my reason for this. We tend to associate, and I think, I don't want to throw economists under the bus. Sociologists are keen to do this all the time, right? But some economists years ago basically associated child growth and fertility and population growth with economic growth. And so the assumption is, if we have more kids, then we have to build more houses. We have to expand things. That basically is a very easy way to push economic growth.
Yeah,
the economy will grow if we have more
economy.
kids.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I think people have started to realize, like, okay, that's true, but why do we need the economy to constantly be growing? That is a trope that really only matters because we say it matters, right? There's no reason that we have to constantly be like, the economy has expanded. So what? Who the hell cares if the economy is constantly expanding, right? That's just a made up number. All of these numbers are made up and they don't really mean anything as far as like quality of life, how long people live. There are lots of other things that matter way more than GDP expanded by 0.2% this quarter, right? Like, so what? So if all the whole rationale for having more kids is we want to keep the economy expanding, that's a terrible reason to have more kids. We should be having kids because we love kids, right? We want to actually take care of them, not because we're contributing to some consumer culture that's going to expand the economy and keep the economy strong. On top of that, and that's not even getting to the environmental aspects. Where here in the US, right? And I'm not going to get these numbers correct, but basically one kid in the US consumes roughly as much as like 40 kids in India, because we buy so many things, we travel so much, we do all these. Our economic impact, our environmental impact here in the US is massive. We all care about the environment. So why doesn't that factor into our fertility decisions just as much or more than, am I contributing to an expanding economy? Right. So I have really serious problems with that. And that's not even getting
Let me
to
answer that.
the ideas. Can I say one more thing? Yeah. The last piece, and I know both of you may actually disagree with this. That's fine. People like Elon Musk, who, yes, I have a Tesla. I have Tesla stock. So I'm not trying to crap on that part of Elon Musk, right? He's brilliant. He's done some amazing things. He keeps saying that he wants to kind of create more kids, right? And that comes out, to use a Josh term, as rather elitist, because he's basically saying smart white people need to reproduce. And I know both of you are going to cringe when I make it about race, so I'll try and not make it much about race, but it is very much a race issue, but it's also a bit of an elitist thing where he's like, I'm smart, I'm successful, I should be having lots of kids, not poor brown people. And that comes across really awful.
When did he say that?
Josh, I didn't say that. I didn't say Elon Musk said, I should be having kids, not poor brown people. But he is saying, I'm a rich person,
intimated
I should have kids, not poor people. No, he's literally said, I'm a rich person, I should have kids, not poor people. He just didn't say poor brown people. Okay. That is very much a racist argument too.
I don't think he said, I'm a rich person, I should have more kids, but maybe he said, I'm a smart, successful person. And I actually don't know if I disagree with that, with his statement. I'd love to have 11 Elon Musks on the planet.
Haven't you seen Idiocracy? We saw what happens when you just have the uneducated hicks getting on with their cousins, right?
Right.
And Terry Crews. I saw Wall-E too, right? They're hilarious. They're funny movies, and I get the point, right? But is that really the point we want to make? I get it, and it's funny. It is funny, right?
All right, Josh. Your turn, I want to hear what you have to say.
Okay, what was that statement you said? Why shouldn't we use the
GDP, economic growth?
No, not GDP, the environmental concerns as a way to harness our child rearing or whatever. Because I'm going to answer that directly first, because for like 80 years now, alarmists on the left have been saying the world's about to come to an end and we're going to destroy the environment and we're going to have a population collapse if we don't rein this in immediately. I mean, this alarmism has been going on for a very long time, and they always put a number on it. Like, if we don't get this done, we're done in 10 years. And then we hit 10 years and like, hey, things are going pretty good, fellas. So that's why I wouldn't be listening to the alarmists. This has been going on forever. At some point, you just ignore the boy when he's crying wolf, right? Now, there's like 6 things that you said that I wanted to address, and now I forgot about because I was thinking about idiocracy. Terry Crews with the machine gun. What was the first thing that you said?
Didn't they water the
Um,
fields with Gatorade?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wasn't called
Good.
Gatorade.
I'm gonna win
Brondo.
this argument.
It was
I'm gonna win this
Brondo.
argument just because I just distracted Josh.
It
Yeah.
has electrolytes. Oh, that's such a great movie. It was hilarious. What was the first thing that you went off on? The
Why it matters.
growing economy.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I agree. There it is kind of a straw man, but there are obvious correlations with GDP and your standard of living that go along with the economy growing. I own a small business. When the economy is growing, my business does way better. I'm sorry, but I can go to my books right now and correlate that. When the economy starts shrinking, when we go into recession, my business falls off a cliff. I lose a lot of customers, right? It's directly correlated. So I half agree with what you're saying there, but there is an obvious correlation. So
Well, yeah, I was kind of say the same thing. Like, no president stays in office when you who's like, let's have a recession. Let's have
exactly. It's not good.
But I actually agree with what you're saying, Ryan. This, because you're right. It's sort of semantics that we need more people to grow to create
that
more
part.
stuff.
I agree with.
Yeah.
It's almost like
almost
a
a
tautology,
Band-Aid.
right? Yeah, it's a tautology is almost what it is. It's like we need more people to grow the economy to have more people to grow the economy.
Yeah.
Right? It's just it's almost true by definition. And it's like, no, stop. Japan did this, right? And it's not like Japan is in the shitter, right? Like they haven't fallen apart and it's disastrous and everything's bad in Japan, right?
Hasn't been great.
Well,
but in
what's
my
their
mind,
quality of life, right?
Oh, it's good. But in my mind, it's almost like a Band-Aid. Instead of actually like addressing national debt and government overreaching, government overspending and all that stuff, we just say, well, let's just have more kids and then the economy will continue to grow and we'll make so much money that we can ignore the fact that we have this festering thing over here and we have debt we'll never pay off. If everything was bad, if we balanced the budget and got rid of government misappropriations and here's the libertarians coming out, then we wouldn't need to rely on having a billion kids, right? So I agree with half of what you're saying, but it is a cure-all. When we have a bunch of kids, well, guess what? We got to produce more goods, and that's good for everybody. Eventually, that's going to come to it. Well, what it does is the economy grows, and then you hit the bubble like we're about to hit, and then everything crashes.
About to
kind of
hit.
sit here.
What did we just go through? I thought we just went through that.
I think it's going to get worse.
It's going to get worse.
Yeah, I haven't reinvested in my
for
stuff.
Sure. Yeah,
because I don't think it's actually corrected. I think we're seeing inflation and stuff.
Stock prices have dramatically corrected. They're going a little bit back up, but I don't think housing prices have corrected.
Exactly.
They're starting to turn. Housing prices are starting to turn.
I think it's going to be a big crash. So I don't think it's actually corrected.
Yeah, I would agree.
Just on the front end of it. But I don't know. Exactly. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to the alarmists.
But yeah, that's interesting. So that's an interesting thing.
That was a good question.
Yeah, well, and what's funny is my I'm not going to get into it, but my fifth question was on the White House changing the definition of recession, which was which was funny that Ryan brought that up about the recession, and that it's sort of like they're like, we don't know what GDP mean, or shrinking GDP. What does that even mean, right? Does that even mean recession? And well, and we don't have to go into this.
Don't defend Biden, Ryan.
No, I'm not trying to defend Biden. This wasn't a Biden thing. I actually listened to a pretty good podcast by the Wall Street Journal where they brought in an economist to talk about this, and he said, "Here's why this is complicated: is the number of people who have jobs is still going up." Right. And that never happens. That's never happened in prior recessions. Right. And you still have, so you have strong job reports. You still have people getting, higher incomes. There's not enough people working like that. There are a number of factors that are running counter to the standard definition, which is shrinking GDP for 2 quarters. Right. Mm-hmm. So that's the standard definition. And they just said, well, this is complicating it. So we could say we're in a recession if we use that definition, but there are other indicators that suggest the economy is actually doing okay. And I was like, oh, that's interesting, right? So it's not just a black or white recession, not recession. These are economic indicators of a recession, but these are economic indicators that maybe we're not.
Yeah.
Right. And that's not coming from the White House. That was an economist for the Wall Street Journal.
Well, and Powell, Jerome Powell even said, he's like, I don't think we're in a recession because of the jobs numbers. Exactly what you're saying.
Right.
But of course, the people on the hook are going to say, we're not in a recession.
It does feel like the this is fine meme. Like, this is fine. This is fine. Right.
Everything's burning.
Nothing to see here. It does feel a little bit like that. Right. It's all the people that should say that it's fine are saying it's fine, right? Like the president,
exactly,
the Fed chief are like, "Oh no, everything's great. You don't have to worry about a thing," you know.
Well, but there's a logic behind why they're doing that, right? Because if
they want to get reelected, that's their logic.
No. Well, I mean, yes, but no. If consumers begin to think that we're in a recession, then they will change their consumption habits, right? So the other factor, right? So there's, economic growth,
it's a mindset.
There's job reports, and then there's the mindset. Mm-hmm. And if a lot of people are like, we're in a recession, they're going to change how they consume, and which can actually lead to a recession. Right? Yes. So they're trying to keep this up, and like I can see the rationale for that. Not only is it, they keep their jobs, but they could theoretically prevent a recession.
Right. So, it's the same. It's the same with inflation, right? Where if people think we're in an inflation, then they run out and start spending everything before the price goes up some more. So which causes more inflation.
But Janet Yellen, she said, well, we're not going to have inflation. And I'm pretty sure it was her. And then when it all went crazy, she went, well, yeah, I guess we were wrong about that. But we're not in a recession. So, I mean, of course they're going to say that. Hey, but they're also have a bad track record.
Credibility issue.
Wrong.
You do not have to convince me that economists don't know what the hell they're talking about. Yeah. Right. Economists can never predict anything. And don't get me wrong, like I actually work with economists. Some of them are really good. All of them are really, really smart. But predicting what the economy is going to do, you're better off predicting the weather like 6 months out than you are predicting the economy 6 months out.
Yeah.
Unless you're married to
who did it? Someone did a great. So Malcolm Gladwell talked about the 10,000 hours thing to become like a master at something, an expert. Yeah. And so there was someone who updated it and said, well, there's a few more things. And there was do you watch that YouTube channel, Verisarium? I think
I've seen some stuff.
He did a video about it, and they were saying there's some more nuance to it. And one of the things is that you have to have instant feedback, immediate feedback in order to become an expert. And that's like, so if you're playing a sport, right, and you like serve, was it successful, right? That's your feedback, right? Did you win the point, right? And they say that's one of the reasons why experts are so wrong all the time is there's no feedback, right? They're like, the economy's going to crash, and it doesn't, right? And then because there's like, they can say whatever they want and they don't immediately find out if they're like based on a theory, right? And they don't ever find out until 2 years later that their theory was right or wrong, right? And it's like, so they're never actually learning anything. And I thought that was really interesting.
That is very interesting.
Because they're saying about economists was an example they were using, but they were saying experts in general, right? About a lot of things. They're just so wrong all the time.
They're right more than the non-experts. That's what makes them experts.
Well, they were saying it's less than it's like
they
coin
give
toss.
Each other degrees.
It's coin toss, right? Proficiency, and so they're just saying it's like, well, you could.
Well, what do we mean by experts? Because are we including physicians and pilots and
you did this last week? Okay, sure. Stop. The feedback I got on last week's episode.
Awesome. Let's hear it. Yeah. Do it.
No less than 4 people said when Ryan went off on that elitist thing, I wanted to smack him in the face because he's playing a game. Because everybody knew what he was talking about.
Bring it.
If you want to destroy the podcast because the people that give me feedback, they're the ones that listen.
I know that's true. But you also have just been calling me an elitist for years, and I got sick of it. Right. And at the end of the day, you're like, you're an elitist. And I'm like, define your freaking terms, Josh.
Okay.
You
And I
knew
think
what
it's
we were
fair.
talking about. You were playing a game,
Am I an
and everybody
elitist?
knew you were playing a game.
Am I
All right.
in the
Dude,
same position as all?
We're
of you?
Don't go
gonna-
there again.
We're gonna
Don't go
wrap
there
this
again.
up, guys.
You won't
That
like
was
it.
good. A lot of good discussions. But we have 2 assignments. Ryan has to watch a
Steven Crowder video.
Steven Crowder video of "Change My
Okay.
Mind," right? And
Yeah.
Josh has to come up with his a clear definition of what an elitist is.
Ugh.
We still left a little fuzzy, but
No, we didn't. Everybody knew.
Sure.
Anyway, I think that was good discussion. I like that. That was good. So
Those are some good questions. Good questions.
Yeah.
They were just coming to me today, so it was good. And I was like, oh yeah, that'll be a fun one to ask. That'll be a fun one. So that was good. Well, all right. That's anything else? Any closing thoughts, remarks, or little jabbers you want to put in? Okay.
Yeah, Josh, do you want to poke? Got to poke.
I thought you'd for sure.
No,
you'd say
let me
elitist
be
under
fair.
the
So right after that, like within an hour of you posting that episode, my buddy JR, good loyal friend, he texted me and said, when Ryan went off on that elitist thing, I wanted to smack him in the face so hard. But when Tom and Josh were talking about the homeless, I wanted to smack them so hard. So that was fair criticism. He came at all of us. But I had no less than 3 other people. My boy Hunter, I'll give him a shout out. Hadn't talked to him in a while, and he said, "I'm gonna have to stop listening to your podcast." I was like, "Oh crap, what happened?" And he said, "To think that there's a lot of people out there that think the same way as Ryan and will play games like that, just to prove a point or something." I almost stopped listening, and he's been listening from day one. So yeah, there's my point.
That's
you were
called
playing
the
a game.
Socratic method is what that. Well, it's
No,
called the
you were playing a
Socratic
game
method.
because you in that podcast.
That's literally
if you
what the
remember-
Socratic method is.
No, we were talking about Dutch farmers, and you brought up elites before I did. You said the people in the government are not farmers, and they're telling the farmers what to do. So you knew what we were talking about, and then you had to play this game. Well,
But I didn't call him
it.
elitist.
There
Yeah.
we go.
Well,
Okay, you
that's
knew.
fine.
Okay,
We don't
we're
have
done.
to do it.
We're
But
done.
that is the Socratic.
Don't go there. I want to talk
Oh,
about
sure.
this.
Thanks for
Josh gets to
tuning
say his
in.
piece.
To another
you can
episode.
take your poke. You take your poke, and then we
Nope,
can do
we're good.
bonus content with this JVP.
He's
Oh,
a
great.
stoic.
No.
He doesn't need
No.
to reply.
You just look like the better person now. Good
Yeah.
play. I like it.
Thanks. All right. I'm calling it. Till next time, we can hammer it out some more. See ya.
Josh, we may not always agree when it comes to politics, even though we're trying, but there is one thing we agree on. There is only one way to clean up after going to the bathroom, and that's with a Lux bidet.
I've been a proud owner of a Lux bidet for years. I have literally owned a Lux Neo 320 since 2013. That's the warm water model. Talk about happy, fun, poopy time. When I leave the bathroom, I know I'm clean and ready to talk politics in a civilized manner.
Exactly. Using a toilet without a bidet is about as uncivilized as it gets. Civil conversations demand civil hygiene practices.
And that is why our listeners should get themselves a Lux bidet.
And just to be clear, Lux is not supporting one side or the other in this podcast. They support civil conversations and clean butts.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Finding Common Battlegrounds. The music is by Ben Sound. The views expressed in this podcast are those of the participants and not those of their employers. For more information or more episodes, you can find us at findingcommonbattlegrounds.com.
Yeah, that's straight up the Socratic method, Josh. How's that playing a game? I do this all the time. I do it with my students. I do it with other
It's
professors.
playing a game. Everybody
Well,
I talked to, myself included, we all knew what I was talking about because you had already defined it. You had brought it up before I did. And then
But I
to
didn't call
win
them
the
elitists.
argument, see, you know what I'm talking about. So you can put whatever label you want on it. I'm done with that because I'm not playing that game. It's silly. It's pedantic. And several people called it out when like they were mad about it. Not just giving me feedback on the podcast. They came back at me like, dude, I can't listen to your brother when he's doing that stuff because it's not intellectually honest. He's playing a game, trying to he was trying to spin you around or whatever. All 4 people that gave me feedback
Oh,
did the
geez.
same thing. So you can
Can
laugh about it.
Can I give you
but
another
it
example?
was-
I am going to laugh about it.
No,
Can I give you another example?
Because I don't care.
No,
I don't care.
it's not about elitism, right? I was at a retreat. Me being an elitist, I'm at a retreat on some island in Canada for a grant that I'm working on. And one of the people who's there, so we're a bunch of PhDs, right? We're working on this grant, studying whatever it is we're studying. But one of them, he's an expert on ritual. Okay, so on rituals. And he has literally just come from a conference in Europe. There was a conference on ritual. Okay. And I'm genuinely intrigued. So we're sitting down, like having dinner or something, and he's describing that at this conference, the creators of the conference had created a ritual. It was a one-off ritual that they wanted all the participants to participate in, right? And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. I said, okay, I have some questions. Okay. And
did you know what the ritual was?
Well, I mean, it didn't matter what the ritual was, right? My first question was, can a ritual be a one-off? Because my understanding of ritual was something that's repeated, right? That it's got to be repeated to be a ritual. And he's like, no, they can be a one-off. And I was like, then what does that mean, right? Like, what is a ritual? And so I did the same thing that I was doing with you, Josh, not because I was just trying to put him into a corner. I really don't care about that. No, his answer eventually was pretty good, right? But I can see that it gets frustrating, but I genuinely still don't know what a ritual is, right? Because he couldn't define it. And basically, I just kept asking questions like, well, okay, so what are the characteristics of a ritual? Like, is it this or is it that? Can it be repeated? Does it have to be important? Like all of these things. And eventually, here was his response. And I thought it was brilliant, right? He's like, I don't feel the need to be backed into this corner. And that's how it ended, right? And we all just laughed because I was like, that's a pretty great response. But at the end of the day, I still don't know what the definition of ritual is.
You just left
and
it.
Except you do, because it's in the cultural zeitgeist. People know these things. When I say the word ritual, things pop into your head.
Yes.
So to try to pin him down like that and make him give you a definition on the fly, where's the intellectual honesty in having a conversation when you're doing that? It's like poking holes in somebody because you.
What Josh, what you were saying earlier, it's like a comedian would make the joke, would say, it would be like, Ryan should have said, well, is it a ritual if we only going to do it once? And like, right. And leave it at that. Whereas Ryan's so analytical, he'll like, well, and they're like, dude,
I've got to dig down to it.
You dig into it. And they're like,
yeah.
But comedians you were saying that earlier, and I think it's right. They make observations and they do it in a funny way, but they sort of jab, right? And they just like throw it. They're kind of mocking you, right? Whereas Ryan's like, no, I really want to know. And they're like,
I really do. Like this is
no, I can't give you an answer.
Yeah. I brought it up multiple times since, right? And the nice thing, like I know the guy, he's awesome. We're good friends. So it wasn't malicious.
Not after that,
malicious about it.
He unfriended you.
I think we still are. But in my mind, all I'm trying to do is put the parameters on this so we can have a conversation. Because when I said a ritual's a one-off, both of you were like, wait, can a ritual be a one-off?
Right.
Right.
No, and it's a valid point. And clearly he didn't have a good answer for it because it's exactly.
But here's the thing, when you demand the explanation, if he's an expert on rituals, right? And he doesn't have a ready explanation for you, and you just keep digging, that's low. I mean, if it's clear,
it made him uncomfortable for sure. Yeah.
It did make him uncomfortable. And I get that.
Then shut up. Because what good is going to come from that? It's like you're just. I wish I could see you
trying to figure something out.
Crazy. That's not what's going to happen, and you know that when somebody doesn't have a ready definition, well, then move on because you have an idea. When I say elite, cultural elites, whatever, you have an idea because you had already described them, right? So then you just keep pounding this home, and that drove everybody crazy. Tom, did it drive you crazy? I had 4 people call me immediately and said, "I can't listen if this is what's going to happen."
I
sympathize about that, but we already only have 4 people listening. So it's funny, but it's not that funny.
Ryan, it felt like he was wiggling out, right? Yeah, I get what you're saying. Well,
I mean,
what else was I going to say?
that's interesting.
Josh, what was the truth thing that you want? I wanted to talk about that.
Okay, this is kind of complicated, and I didn't read through this again. I was reading this the other night at like 2 a.m, and I went, "Holy crap, this is what we're talking about." And I put 2 Jordan Peterson observations together to come to this conclusion. So the first one, so Tom may have heard him talk about this. He talks about how psychologically how the brain's wired to simplify things. Because if you look out your window, what are you seeing? You're actually seeing millions of things. You're seeing millions of leaves, millions of blades of grass. You're seeing thousands of shingles on the roofs, right? You're seeing an immense amount of stuff that your brain has to filter. So your brain just automatically, we have evolved to simplify what we're looking at. So instead of seeing millions of trees, you see, or millions of leaves, you see a tree, a house, a street, some cars. Your brain turns things into tools.
Heuristics.
Right? Yes.
These are called heuristics. Yes.
Yes, exactly. So when you see a chair, you're seeing, like the chair I'm sitting on, it's very complicated. It has wheels and casters and all sorts of stuff, but your brain doesn't see all of that. It just sees that's a tool, that's a chair, and you sit down. So your brain is always simplifying things at a kind of an incredible rate. Everything's getting simplified. So he talks a lot about that because it's important to understand that, because there's a lot of stuff you're overlooking and your brain's just focusing on tools, threats, sex, food, that kind of stuff, right? Then I was reading in his book. I'm going to read, there was about 3 pages that were fascinating, but I'll just read this one paragraph. You guys with me so far?
Yeah.
Yeah, as long as you don't read 3 pages of Jordan Peterson.
Just one paragraph. It's kind of long though. You said in the last podcast, you said the best thing I've taken from the podcast is that conservatives need liberals and liberals need conservatives. You said that. Where did I get that, Ryan?
I don't know. Please tell me it's not Jordan Peterson. Please tell me it's not Jordan Peterson. Oh my gosh.
You're so ridiculous. Okay, the ideological systems we are prone to adopting, the systems that so polarize us politically and personally, can be profitably understood in light of the present conceptualization. They are cultural narratives usefully considered as parasites upon a more fundamental religious, mythological, or dramatic substructure, ancient, evolved, and deeply biological in its nature. Ideologies take on the structure of a story that is essentially religious, but they do so incompletely while including certain elements of experience or eternal characters while ignoring others. The power remains in the representation nonetheless, because what is included retains its fundamentally mythological, biological nature, its instinctual meaning. But the missing elements mean that what remains, however powerful in its expression, is biased in a way that restricts its utility. That bias is desirable subjectively, as it simplifies what would otherwise be too complex to understand, but dangerous because of its one-sidedness. If the map you are using is missing part of the world, you are going to be utterly unprepared when the absent element makes itself manifest. How is it possible for us to retain the advantages of simplification without falling prey to the accompanying blindness? The answer is to be found in the constant dialogue between genuinely different types of people. So he goes way more into that in the next couple of pages. Largely confirmation bias, but it's extrapolated out by this whole, our brains are filtering down what we just can't process because it's too complex.
To simplify it.
And it simplifies it. And then he has something that he says a lot. People don't possess ideologies. Ideologies possess people, which is really brilliant in what it's saying, because it's true. Because when you argue with somebody that is an ideologue, this is apparent all the time in our dialogue. If Ryan presents me with evidence that contradicts contrary. Something that I believe, I'm going to fight it. And why am I fighting it? Because I am possessed of an ideology. I don't possess an ideology. I am possessed by the ideology. So I fight it because I don't want that to be true. So I think what he's saying here, well, what do you guys think he's saying? Maybe we
and I like that. And it's simple, like you simplify it. So it's so complex, you simplify it and so but there are examples that go against your simplified example, but you just sort of ignore those because you want everything,
which is
to
just
fit.
confirmation bias.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so,
But
but then when you talk with someone else and Ryan presents, oh, there was this case here, or this evidence here, or this example here, and you're like, oh, I don't like that, right? Those are the ones that don't fit into your simplified ideology, and therefore
your narrative.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
you're
And it's
resistant to
painful.
it. Yes, exactly.
This is the worst part of the podcast, is one of us presents evidence and contradicts the other. It is so hard for either of us, because we're freaking Kragans and just people, to admit we're wrong, and we'll fight it because it's painful.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, and Jordan describes that too. People don't want to grow, and they don't want to admit they're wrong because it's a painful process to burn away your bad suppositions. Nobody wants to do it because it sucks, but it's absolutely essential to do if you're going to grow and learn and gather more truth. You have to do away with your bad, untrue suppositions. And doing it on the podcast, I mean, this has been a good growth experience for me. I'm not going to speak for Ryan, but I assume he feels the same way. Probably you too, Tom. But it sucks when I'm wrong, and it's clear that I'm wrong. Oh, frick! I hate that feeling, but it's necessary.
I'm
Ryan's
not
gonna
disagreeing.
I've never been wrong. I've never once been wrong.
Well,
I actually take a different approach. I love being wrong. I really do. And
yeah,
here's
everybody
why
that
I
knows
like
you is
being
going to see that.
No.
How did the
If
bird
I'm
get out of
wrong-
the kitchen?
I know, Josh. If I'm wrong, guess what that means? It means I've
Something
just
to learn.
learned.
Yeah.
I've just learned, and now I'm more right. Right?
That's
So it
exactly what
totally
I just
feeds
said.
my
Yes.
ego. It totally feeds my ego when I'm wrong, because I'm like, wow,
I see what you're saying.
I learned something. Now I'm less wrong.
You're less wrong
Now
than
I'm more
before.
right. Right?
So
I love
when
being
was
wrong.
that one
I have
time
no
that you
problem with
admitted that you were wrong? When did that one time happen?
I don't remember. I don't know that it's ever happened. I'm wrong all the time.
I wish I could see your face right now.
So this is so. Here's an
gonna add
interesting
one other thing, but
idea
that's okay.
that I was actually thinking. I haven't fully formulated this thought, but I was actually thinking about it, and it kind of goes in line with what you're saying, Josh. There are people. There are great people that are very what's the word, controversial, and that's what I'm finding is great people are super controversial. I have very few people that I look at and go like, that person is so good and that person is so bad. It's always like flip-floppy, right? In that some examples, right? Even Elon Musk, right? A lot of people don't like him at all, right? And I think he's done some incredible things, but a lot of people, he's almost villainous in some ways. Like a lot of people really don't like him. And Joseph Smith, right? Be known for good and evil throughout the world, right? And he is. And there's like people like Karl Marx and you know, and it's like I'm finding that a lot. Like people that are great are very controversial in that I haven't wrapped my mind around like what my essay is on this. Like, is it people that are breaking molds are they disruptors
for something?
Therefore people are like, oh, you changed my world and I don't like that, right? I don't know, right? But I'm trying to figure that out, like why that is, but I'm finding that a lot.
My mind immediately goes to they're standing for something, and if you're willing to stand for something, you have to stand up
going
to
against
somebody,
someone
and they're
else's
going
ideology.
to hate you.
Yes, exactly. That's what I'm wondering, and that's why that's what came to mind while you were saying it. Is like, is that why? Right? You're like, oh, this is the way it is, and people are like, whoa, that blows my world up, right? And I don't like that. I don't like you. So it's
and let me add another thing that Jordan talks to us about is because this does go along with our quest we set out to discover 2 years ago about why there does seem to be two truths in the world or the society or whatever.
Realities. Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you've heard about his Big 5 personality test. This is like very well accepted stuff in the
the Big 5 is the MMPI, the Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory. That's an actually A validated personality test.
Yeah.
Yes.
So he has one that you can take, and it's the Big Five. It's based off of that on his website, and it'll tell you, about yourself and the kind of jobs you should pursue, that kind of thing. If you're introverted,
if you're a sociopath.
Well,
kidding.
I don't know if it'll actually tell you that, but like if you're introverted, it'd be like, maybe don't go get a sales job. Okay, like it tells you stuff like that, and that's good advice. But what he says, this was really interesting. He said when somebody takes that test, the psychologist can look at the test, and with, I want to say it was like 85 or 90% accuracy, they can determine if you'll be like liberal or conservative. And that's solely just based off how your brain works. This is more of a biological thing than it is any kind of nurture thing or the society you're raised in. So if that's the case, that goes right into what we're saying here of where ideologies you're going to be possessed by and why there appear to be two truths. There's some people that are going to focus on what are the Big Five? Well, it doesn't really
there's
matter.
neuroticism. There's
introversion, extroversion. I should have looked them up.
I'd have to look them up.
But they you're going to be more focused on like helping people, which is what most Democrats think they're focused on. So that you see where I'm going with that, how that ties in.
So there are a couple of, Jonathan Haidt, who we've already brought up, right? He's more famous, I think, for his book, The Righteous Mind, Why Good People Are Divided by Politics and Religion than by The Coddling of the American Mind, which I think both are really good books. But what he gets at in The Righteous Mind, I think we should read The Righteous Mind, right? Like everybody should read it. Basically says that people on the left and people on the right are both moral, right? And this is where we get that polarization is we keep saying, you're not moral, you're not moral. It's that the basis of our morality is different, right? So the basis of our morality is different. What we value and think is moral is different, but it's not that we're not moral. It's just we have a different understanding of what morality is,
right?
And so that's where we run into these problems, right? So he's trying to get at that, and by saying like it's almost biological. And Jonathan Jost is another psychologist who's actually made the argument that there's a biological component to politics, and you can see it in brain scans, and you can see it in like the test you're talking about. That there are differences. But it doesn't mean that one side's immoral, right? That's just how it gets framed. So that gets back to kind of the stories that you were talking about. We use these stories to kind of tell a narrative about ourselves. And who wants to tell a narrative that makes them the bad person, right? No one wants to be the bad person. So if I'm the good person, but my story is different from your story, then you must be the bad person.
You must
and
be
this
wrong.
leads to the polarization.
That's true.
Yeah,
here's a writing tip. I found when I'm writing a story, if I make myself as the villain, the bad guy, the villain is the motivations become so much clearer, so much more believable. And I've done that in a couple of my books now. And the villain becomes amazing. Whereas it's just some cookie cutter moron that wants to take over the world. So it's a really useful exercise to portray yourself as the villain in this situation like that. But you're absolutely right. Nobody wants to be the villain.
Right. I'm trying to think of the movie.
No one is the villain, and
no one is. Yeah.
Therefore, the other side must be. Yeah, I like that.
We were watching a movie recently, and Torrin was predicting everything that was going to happen because it was a straight up like very positive. The protagonist is the perfect person, and the villain is this idiot who does stupid things. Like, and it was so predictive, right? Like it's so predictable. You could just. It was not fun to watch because you literally knew the very next thing that was going to happen. So I agree. I like complicated villains, right? Who have like real, meaningful, like logical justifications for doing what they're doing versus just the cookie cutter villain where you're like, why would you do that? That makes no sense. Yeah, I agree.
Everybody's the hero of their own story. So when you just have a Snidely Whiplash out there,
you ever
putting
seen
a woman on the train tracks just to do it.
Right. Just because they're evil. Yeah.
You ever seen those videos where they show like where the villain was actually kind of right the whole time, I'm trying to think of an example because I just saw a movie recently and I'm like, this is like the villain was
Star Wars. Okay. The Jedi are freaking mind controlling people all over the galaxy and stealing children. And the Empire just wants some law and order, and then you have the rebels that are killing people. So there's a very good point to be made that the rebels and the Jedi are the bad guys, especially the Jedi. They're mind controlling people. They use their Jedi mind tricks to mind control people into doing what they want, and then they steal their children and train them to be Jedi. These are bad dudes.
Well, I think they talk about that in Mandalorian, where there's like they've infiltrated the Empire, and the Empire is like, yeah, we had and right now the Empire is like kind of decayed or broken up, and they're like, we used to have stability, and there was no crime and all this stuff, right? And
in that one episode,
they're eating,
that's a fantastic episode.
But it was Black Panther. That's what it was. It was Black Panther, where the villains like, we want to give our technology to the world, and like that, and they're like, no, you're bad. And he wins he becomes king, he becomes the Black Panther through,
and then he does it
through legitimate means, right?
Mm-hmm.
He challenges through ritual combat, he beats him, but they didn't like him, and they're like, you're not fit to be king, and you're like, but he's still the king. And then they like basically coup him. And then they kill him, and then they basically did what he said. They're like, "Oh,
they did exactly what he said."
Right.
He was absolutely right.
I was like, "This was totally retarded."
Well, but I think that does make it complicated. So I remember the movie. We actually watched the entire Rambo series. I don't know if you guys have seen Rambo at all recently, and you don't have to.
New ones.
Right? No, we were playing Far Cry 6. Yeah, we watched them all.
Wow.
Yeah, First Blood, right? And First Blood is actually not a bad movie. I mean, it's a little tacky because it was kind of old, but the premise is actually not terrible. But immediately after that, every one of them becomes a very cookie cutter movie where the villain is so stereotypically villain that you're just like, exactly what they're going to do. And of course, he's the protagonist, right? Rambo's the good guy. So you can predict exactly like, oh, he's going to save her. He's going to save him. He's going to kill him. He's going to do this, right? And one of them, not to go into details, but one of them, like the villain is a pedophile, right? Like they went that far as that to make him just like wantonly killing people, and he's a pedophile.
Yeah.
They just had to go that big.
He's just like, so bad. Yeah.
Yes. So bad. Right. It was pretty ridiculous. And at that point, Torn was just like, can we not, because it's the same movie, everyone after the first one is the exact same movie. It's the exact same movie. Yeah, it's terrible. So
except in the one movie, he does play an awesome game of goat football with the Taliban. That's pretty
true.
Amazing.
That one's number 3, Rambo 3.
That's like the only scene I can remember from any of the movies, because they were just.
It's Rambo 3, Osama bin Laden.
Yeah, it was so ridiculous.
That was good. Ridiculous. That was great. Thanks for reading that. That was thought provoking.
Yeah, I thought that, and there's more he went into there. Ryan should definitely read the book, but it makes sense why we all have these blind spots and why there does appear to be multiple versions of the truth floating about.
Well, I mean, I like his point. It's almost like the foundation of the podcast, right? That if we want to avoid the blind spots, we have to talk to people with whom we disagree.
That's how
that's the only way you can do it, right?
The answer is to be found in the constant dialogue between generally different types of people, which that's what we're doing.
Awesome. And that's what we're doing here on this podcast.